Mike Rogers is here, former Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee, and Shan Wu joins us, defense attorney and former federal prosecutor. Good morning to you both. Chairman Rogers, what do you make of this? I mean, obviously the president is upset about this, but to go as far as to call it treason, what's your read?
Well, I'm going to look at this from a former FBI agent as well as the former chairman of the Intel Committee. I have to say I'm a little concerned by this. The way McCabe laid out what he determined was the rationale for opening an obstruction of justice into the investigation of the President of the United States was very thin gruel. It certainly wouldn't work on an average citizen, let alone somebody that was just elected as President of the United States. This concerns me. I think we're going to have to spend, or the Congress should spend a little time trying to understand exactly if there were more to this or not. And the very fact that someone who was the deputy at the Department of Justice had the conversation, of which McCabe now says was serious, about trying to recruit other members. That's also very, very concerning. It's not that you have to like the president, that you don't even have to agree with what he's doing, but this is very serious, I think, to the protection of 60 million people's votes for President of the United States. Again, you don't have to like him. That should not be part of the equation.
Let me just ask you a little bit more on that, Chairman Rogers, because McCabe's rationale, which he explained to Scott Pelley last night on 60 Minutes, was he was concerned that that all of this would just sort of disappear, go into the ether. Any concerns about Russia, et cetera, and so that's why he opened this counterintelligence investigation. You're saying you don't think that's legitimate enough a concern, is that right?
Let me tell you, as an FBI guy, I worked organized crime in Chicago. We were still following leads in the late 80s, early 90s on the Jimmy Hoffa case because it never got closed. Some notion that this thing was just going to go away overnight is absolutely ridiculous. And so this notion that I was the only guy in America to do that really concerns me about the judgment of that particular FBI official in taking these actions, because the Bureau is bigger than that. And so, again, that's what worried me when I saw his attitude about, and the things that he listed. He listed conclusions in that interview. He never really listed facts. Having a president say something in public on the news is not a fact of which you would open up an investigation. That was shocking to me. And I hope they're going to have to look into this, like it or not. And the thing we have to remember, now this is a guy who is under criminal investigation for lying in an investigation. Right. So you have to take all of that into consideration when you look at what he was saying on TV last night.
And that's exactly what I was going to bring up to you, Shan. I mean, it's not just that he's accused of lying once. When you look at the entirety of the Department of Justice's IG report, the conclusion there is that McCabe lied to investigators 3 times under oath when asked if he was the source of a story given to the media. Now, Scott Pelley asked him about that, and he said, the answer was that he was confused about it. But does Chairman Rogers have an important and salient point here in terms of the credibility that should be given to McCabe?
Oh, I think the chairman has an important point about how to assess McCabe's credibility. I mean, he's got this criminal investigation hanging over him and the IG report's finding. But I think where I would respectfully disagree with Mike is that this was a very unprecedented situation, not only for a high FBI official, regardless of who he was, but also for the Deputy Attorney General. I mean, assuming that these are truthful remarks that Rosenstein made, it's an extraordinary situation, and it's not like a regular investigation. There already, I believe, this is a little bit fuzzy to us, but there already had been the counterintelligence investigation going on with regard to the Russian interference. And now they've had this very unprecedented firing of the FBI director. And the question arises, what should officials do in that situation if they have actual worry? What if the president himself is under suspicion? And I think, with regard to opening the investigation, with regard to the 25th Amendment, I mean, it's fine to have hearings. I have something to say about that as to who really wants the hearings. But of course, they have to be able to discuss these issues. I mean, that's part of their duty to the Constitution, to think about these scenarios and to talk about it. I think, the hearings may come back to haunt Trump and Graham. I mean, if I am Trump's lawyers, I don't want hearings with 2 ex-employees testifying about, what their concerns were. That's the last thing I'd want. I want them to go away quietly.
I'd like for you both to listen to this segment of the interview that certainly really struck us. And it's Andy McCabe describing the president believing Vladimir Putin about North Korea's capability with nuclear weapons over, seemingly, the U.S. intelligence assessment. Let's play it.
Essentially, the president said he did not believe that the North Koreans had the capability to hit us here with ballistic missiles in the United States. And he did not believe that because President Putin had told him they did not. Intelligence officials in the briefing responded that that was not consistent with any of the intelligence our government possesses. To which the president replied, "I don't care, I believe Putin."
Chairman Rogers, if that is the case, again, this is one man's readout of the meeting, how concerning is that to you?
Well, listen, I think this has been a concern of mine and many of the folks in the national security space on both sides of the aisle, that the president has both publicly attacked our intelligence services and publicly basically said, I don't believe them, overseas in front of Vladimir Putin, and in this case, if that were one more extension of that. So it's very, very concerning. Listen, they have to fix this. The best place you can go to get that kind of information, remember, intelligence isn't a perfect picture. Sometimes they don't get it right, but they have all kinds of sources of collection that they cull together and then analyze to give policymakers like the President of the United States the best understanding of what the security threat or capability of our adversary is at the time. That information is based on lots and lots of work by lots and lots of people. You can ask questions, you can try to poke holes in it. You don't get to do any of that with Vladimir Putin. And so this notion that he would trust the Russian president over our intelligence services. By the way, the Russian president is a trained KGB officer who are trained in the arts of manipulation, is a little concerning to me.
And not to question what the incentive would be for Vladimir Putin to make that statement, right, to the U.S. president. Yeah. Shan, quickly before we go, it's that ending of the 60 Minutes piece where Andy McCabe says the memos, those contemporaneous memos of those conversations with the president are with Mueller's team right now. Significant?
I think that's very significant because the contemporaneous aspect of them makes them much more credible, whatever other baggage McCabe may have. And I think ultimately, again, I think that's why if I'm Trump's counsel, I don't want some testimony now coming out where those memos are going to be floated. We can play 20/20 hindsight and debate if McCabe's judgment was correct, but the problem is all the information that was confronting them, all the worries that they had, that's all going to come out. And if you're Trump's people, you don't want that coming out now. It just adds to the firestorm.
Shan Wu, thank you. Chairman Rogers, nice to have you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still to come, the White House says it's ready for any potential legal challenges to the president's national emergency declaration to fund the wall. But who would win in court? It's a big outlying question this morning. Also, Democratic presidential candidates out in full force across those early primary states, meeting with supporters on this President's Day. We'll take you live to New Hampshire. And was it all a hoax? A stunning new allegation in the alleged assault on Empire actor Jussie Smollett. Police say they need to talk to him again.